Hi everyone, my name is Carolyn Harvey and I am the founder of Dream Baby Sleep. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. First, I want to take a minute to thank my replay viewers. Those of you who are watching this after the fact, if you could do me a huge favor and right here below, down here in the comments, if you could go ahead and comment what time would be most ideal for you to be able to participate live, because the more live participation we have, the better, and we want to make this meaningful to you. So thank you for watching the replay, but do comment and let me know what time would be ideal for you to watch this live. So with that said, again, my name is Carolyn Harvey and I'm the founder of Dream Baby Sleep. I'm dying right now over this little cutie over my shoulder. That's my little baby. She's 4 years and 9 months now, so that picture brings a big smile to my face. Hey there, Zan, fellow Dream Team member. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're just kicking it off. And really, the purpose of this live Facebook feed is to talk about night waking and the pain that we all experience while we are enduring multiple night wakings. So just so you guys know the format, I'm going to talk for about, give or take 10 minutes, maybe a little bit less, and I'm going to highlight some key tips and ways that you can improve on and prevent multiple night waking, okay? And after, give or take 10 minutes, I'm then gonna start taking your live questions so that we can get some of your specific questions answered. So if you guys could do me a huge favor, hi Shuli, thanks for tuning in. Do me a huge favor, there is a share button right down here at the bottom of this live feed. If you could do me a huge favor and share this live feed, I would greatly appreciate it. So with that said, I'm going to kick it off and we are going to talk about night waking, multiple night waking, and what you can do about it. So is it the bane of your existence? Are you waking up, give or take, 4 to 6 times a night with the baby? Is that normal? Well, first we want to answer a couple questions. Number one, how old is your baby? Is your baby older than 4 months old? Check that box, yes. Then we want to ask ourselves, how many times a night does your baby need to nutritionally feed? Okay, so super important. We want to feed the need, the nutritional need, and not the want, okay? So for many of us, myself included, I created a sleep feed association. And I taught my daughter actually to habitually wake up at night to feed, okay? So there comes a point where age-appropriate feeds are definitely necessary, but when they're in excess, it's a habit. So the baby's over 4 months old, we now go to our pediatrician and we ask our pediatrician, how many times a night does my baby need to feed? And your pediatrician might say none. Let the baby cry it out and move on, which that's easier said than done. So let's say hypothetically, the pediatrician says 1 night feed. You're not so comfortable with that. You think in your gut that the baby likely needs 2. I'm great with 2 feeds. For my babies older than 4 months old, 2 feeds is the most that I will build into a sleep plan, okay? So with that said, now what do we do? Okay, so we have to identify a sleep training method that we're going to use when our babies wake up outside of a scheduled feeding. Okay, so you can use any method you're comfortable with. We all know at this point that sleep training does not mean cry it out, okay? Yes, there's tears involved in sleep training, but we can use a lot of really gentle methods, lean on the science behind sleep to get in front of the sleep window, prevent the overtired state, and land on a sleep training method that we're comfortable with. So number one, there's pick up, put down, which is a great method that we go to the baby anytime they wake outside of a feed, and we do exactly that. We pick them up, and we put them down. Remember, your job is no longer to soothe your baby to sleep. Your job is to now teach your baby how to soothe themselves to sleep without a feeding, okay? So, with that said, there's also chair method. There is check and console. There's Ferber. There's silent return for our older toddlers, okay? So decide on a sleep training method that you're comfortable with and then stick with it. I'm a huge fan of check and console. Number one, mom and dad are regularly involved. It's using what a lot of people call controlled crying, where we are going to the babies in, let's say, 3-minute intervals. We want to start at a minimum of 3 minutes. Although very unpleasant to hear our babies crying for 3 minutes, we would wait the 3 minutes outside the room. We would then go to the babies and check on them, console them, give them loving direction, and then we would leave the room. Okay, so as soon as you're outside of the room, you would reset that timer for whatever time you decided on that you're comfortable with. And remember, choose a time that you're comfortable with and you can remain consistent with. The key here is consistency. So if you start with a time that you're not comfortable with and you're not able to follow through, ultimately it's not going to work, okay? So start with 3 minutes. There's no shame in that. A lot of our clients start with 3 minutes. So with that said, you've landed on your sleep training method. You've decided on hypothetically check and console. You've decided that you're going to feed your baby 2 night feedings, okay? Some babies need no night feedings. Some babies need 1, some need 2. You talk to your pediatrician, you determine what's age appropriate, and you want to ask yourself some key questions. Is your baby growing on a scale? If the answer is yes, then we are not concerned about nutritional needs at night other than 1 to 2 feeds. And is your baby average? Is your baby within the spectrum? And when I say average, there's a spectrum for a reason, a percentile, if you will, from 0 to 100. If you fall inside there, then you're average, okay? So you just want to be inside the spectrum. So with that said, we're going to apply our sleep training method outside of the scheduled feeding. So what does that mean? What does it look like? Number one, biggest tip I can give you. You all have heard me say this many times. Bring the bedtime down. So we've all learned in time that night waking is a key indicator that bedtime is too late. If you're overwhelmed, if you're not ready to sleep train, no problem. This is one tip that I would suggest that you use above anything else. Take your bedtime down, give or take 15 minutes, at minimum 15 minutes. If you can make it 30 minutes earlier, then fabulous, okay? I love that. So that way we're preventing the night waking due to an overtired state, okay? So we've decided on check and console. We've decided on 2 night feeds. Tip number 2, we are not feeding that baby until after midnight. The first feed, you need to hold off and wait until after midnight, okay? So what that means is you apply your sleep training method prior to midnight. You apply your sleep training method to any waking, okay? Because it's outside of a feed. So hypothetically, you put the baby down for bed at 6:30 p.m. Baby wakes up at 9:30 p.m. We're not feeding. It's only been 2 hours. We know that baby does not need the feed. The baby may want the feed, but the baby does not need the feed. So with that said, you're going to apply your check and console at 9:30. You're going to wait until you hear an escalated cry. Not a wow wow fuss, but an escalated cry. You're going to set your timer for 3 minutes. You're going to stay outside of the room for those 3 minutes. Hi, Sean McBurney. Thanks for tuning in. And you're going to then go to the baby at 3 minutes. If you're outside of the room during that escalated cry for the first 3 minutes, and the escalated cry subsides a smidge, more than 30 seconds, give or take, more than them just, taking a breath, you want to reset your timer. That's your baby showing you that they are self-soothing. They are trying to put themselves to sleep. So take a deep breath, step back, and allow them that freedom to self-soothe. If they cry for the entire 3 minutes, I would expect that. That's okay. You go to them. You do not pick them up, barring any gut instincts of illness or danger, obviously. And you provide gentle comfort to the baby. You pat their back. You shush them. You give them a key loving sleep phrase, loving direction, and then you leave. Your job is no longer to soothe that baby back to sleep. Your job is to teach the baby to soothe themselves back to sleep. So you're in there 1 to 2 minutes, you pat, pat, shush, and you're out of there, okay? If the baby's still crying, you still leave. It's okay. You've given loving direction, you're present, they know you're there, they're not feeling alone, afraid, and abandoned. And now you step back and you allow them the freedom to start to try and figure it out themselves. You're outside the room, you reset that timer for 3 minutes, and you rinse and repeat. And we do this all night, as long as it takes, some longer than others, and that's okay, until we get to midnight. Now, within the first night, could your baby cry on and off upwards of 2 to 3 hours? Absolutely. The norm, I would say, is between 45 and 75 minutes of applying check and console on night 1. The baby then returns to sleep, and we wait for that next wake up, which is after midnight. The first wake up after midnight, we're not waiting at all. We go right to the baby, we pick the baby up, and we feed the baby. We feed the baby, burp the baby, put the baby right back down to bed, and we're out of there. If the baby were to wake up again, hypothetically 2 hours later at, for easy math, 2:30, we know the baby doesn't need a feed. You're on 2 night feeds. If you just gave your baby a full night feed at 12:30 and they're up crying again at 2:30, do they need a feed? Think about it logically. No, they don't. It's something different that they need. And what they need is to be asleep, okay? So if we knee-jerk and feed them every time that they wake up in the middle of the night, we're habitually teaching them to wake up multiple times a night, okay? So with that said, 2 night feeds, perfectly age appropriate after 4 months old. We're not talking about before 4 months old, folks. We're feeding multiple times a night prior to 4 months, okay? So number 1, we've checked with our pediatrician. We've determined how many night feeds our 4-month or older baby needs, not wants. We feed the nutritional need and not the want, guys, okay? It's super, super important. Don't be afraid of that. You know that if you fed your baby at 12:30 and they wake up crying at 2:30, they're not hungry, okay? And also be mindful of how much they're eating when you are feeding them in the middle of the night, okay? Are they taking a full feed, or are they just suckling and using you as a human pacifier? I co-slept with my daughter until she was 11 months old. So I am, raise your right hand if you were the human pacifier. That was me. So I know what that's like. It's a difficult spot to be in. Sleep deprivation for moms is, and dads alike, but those of us who are doing predominantly the majority of the night parenting, moms and dads alike, whoever that role falls on, that sleep deprivation is, it's brutal. So I empathize with you on that, and I encourage you to really take back the night, if you will, okay? So now that you've decided on your sleep training method, you're waiting to feed the first feed prior to midnight, you've made bedtime slightly earlier, and you're applying your sleep training method to any night waking outside of the scheduled feed with consistency and follow through, you're going to get results, okay? So you've got to hold steady. If you're not consistent, it's not going to work. Sleep training works for every baby out there, okay? Well, I shouldn't say every, but almost every. I would say 95% of the time, okay? So the odds that you're the 5 percentile are slim to none, okay? So you are the person who is in control. Mom and dad set the rules for sleep. Mom and dad have to follow through on those rules for sleep. And if mom and dad are consistent and apply the same sleep training method over and over again each night, within 3 to 5 nights, you should start seeing exponential results. Sorry guys, I just froze, so I don't know if you're still with me, but if you are still with me, go ahead and like something, click one of those beautiful little hearts, share this feed, because my screen's frozen, but it's highly possible that you guys can still see me. Oh, I just saw somebody. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. Facebook's, oops, we're back. Okay, I can see myself. There it goes again. Facebook Live is still a little fickle, so thanks for bearing with me. Appreciate that. And just as a reminder, if you could do me a favor, right here on the bottom where the share button is, Dream Baby Sleep is made up of the Dream Team. There are 3 momtrepreneurs, if you will. And if you could share this live feed right here by clicking this little share button, that's a huge help to us. If you find that this information is helpful to you and valuable to you, please share it. We appreciate it. Hi, Patty. Thanks for tuning in. That is the grandma of one of the Dream Team members. And let me tell you something. Without a doubt, it takes a village. And Patty can surely attest to really supporting Jennifer on our Dream Team when she was sleep training her babies over 3 years ago and recently 2 years ago. So lean on your support system, lean on grandma, lean on your multiple caregivers, reach out for help. It does take a village. This is not easy. We are sleep deprived and it is torture sometimes. It's okay to raise your right hand and say, I feel tortured. I feel like I'm doing everything wrong. I don't know how to fix this. And oftentimes, hey Kirsten, good to see you. Oftentimes we feel like a failure. So reach out, share this with your friends. Talk about what you're struggling with in regard to sleep. Talk to your pediatrician about it. We're looking forward to getting your comments live. If you have comments, questions, please post them in the comment field right down here so that way I can answer them for you. If you're watching this on a replay and you missed the live event, please feel free to post the comments and your questions in the comments so we can answer them for you at a later time. Night waking is challenging. Oftentimes we'll have babies that are doing really, really well and they hit a developmental milestone and the night waking skyrockets. So don't panic if that happens to you. You want to really evaluate what's going on. Teething is a big one. We've gotten a lot of questions recently about teething and how that is interfering with nighttime sleep. And we have clients who are just very frustrated about the hurdles with teething. So how do you determine if your baby is waking up because they're teething or because they have possibly a sleep feed association, or because they lack the ability to self-soothe and their binky has popped out? These are all things that we need to determine so that we can address them. So teething is interesting. If their day sleep is not impacted, it is highly likely that their multiple night waking is not due to teething. Teething is more likely to interfere with day sleep than it does with night sleep. So that's first and foremost. So be mindful of that. Hey Heather, thanks for tuning in. Oh, toddlers. I love my toddlers. Okay, we're going to answer a couple questions. We have some, hey Katie, thanks for joining. We have some popping up in the queue here. Again, for my replay viewers, I heard a lot about this. They were disappointed they missed it. Please comment below with the time that you think would be best for you to participate live. And please also post your questions and we will answer them as soon as we can after the live feed ends. So let's see. Heather Frank Turk says, hi, my son is 2 and loves his lovey. Don't they all? That's a good thing, Heather. I got him a larger blanket recently. I chuckle with the larger blanket because if my sister is watching this, she knows why I'm chuckling, and I'm going to tell you why. I got him a larger blanket recently because he's too large for his sleep sack. The lovey gets lost in the blanket and he wakes up freaking out, very common, and I find it for him. I don't want him to introduce another one because he is already obsessed with the one. Ideas, it's like 4 a.m. and I'm woken by the scream. I can empathize with that. So I am not a fan of blankets for toddlers, and I'm going to tell you why. Right now he's waking up screaming for his lovey because he's lost in the blanket. So that's one prime reason why I'm not a fan of them. But number 2, soon he can't control the blanket, meaning if it's not positioned properly or he wants it a different way, he can't control it. So I chuckled, and I'll tell you guys this story before I give you a couple more tips on this. My sister and I were on a family vacation, and my daughter was probably exactly the same as Heather's son, just over 2 years old. And we were sharing a family suite. And my daughter woke up probably give or take every half hour, and she was calling out, instead of screaming lovey, she was screaming tucky. At least she was trying to say tucky with a T, like tuck my blanket in. But her speech was not fully developed yet, so it didn't quite come out tucky. So I'll leave that up to your imaginations, as you can imagine what it sounded like. And she said it probably, give or take 3 or 4 dozen times that night. And my sister and I have an ongoing joke, and we text each other that every now and then. So I empathize with the lovey getting lost and the baby waking up screaming lovey, as well as the blanket slipping off and the toddler screaming tucky or blanky or whatever their thing is. So number 1, Heather, I definitely encourage multiple loveys for that very reason. Make it easy for them to find them. With that said, my daughter would only want this one specific ratty tatty lovey. So I hear you on that. There are sleep sacks big enough for toddlers that are age 2, okay? I have a brand on my website, www.dreambabysleep.com, under products that we love, that you can get them in much larger sizes designed for toddlers. You can get the ones that their feet stick out so that they can have more mobility. So I definitely encourage you to switch back to the sleep sack. Number 1, I don't know if he's trying to jump out of the crib, or even if he's in a toddler bed. Let's see, what did you say? Let's see if you said crib or toddler bed. Crib or toddler bed. Not sure if he's in a toddler bed, but hopefully he's still in a crib because he's young. On that subject, 2-year-olds do not have the ability to display self-control, as we well know. Oh, thanks, Heather, crib. As we well know, they will jump off of the back of the steps without question. So keeping them in a crib as long as humanly possible is really, really